monitoring our Facebook platforms. And if you have a question or a comment, we'd be glad to share those with our audience, with you, and respond to questions. I want to start, though, with, again, introducing my friend who is a wonderful business leader and community leader in Minneapolis. And Kim Smith-Moore is a senior vice president and the LIFT program's national manager for Wells Fargo Corporation. Now, Kim and I have a special connection because she's a native of Minneapolis. She was born and raised right here in North Minneapolis, where I am right now. And so she's a senior vice president with the Wells Fargo Education, Housing, Affordability, Philanthropy team. She leads the foundation's homeownership strategy and identifies opportunities to increase homeownership in Black, Indigenous, people of color communities across the country. She's been responsible for managing over $500 million in grants through the LIFT programs. And the Neighborhood LIFT program, we're talking about that today, provides down payment assistance for people to purchase homes and to prepare them for the home buying process. In addition, Kim has served on numerous national and local housing boards. She's also an experienced real estate agent and owns her own real estate company, Promise Realty. Kim, what a wonderful story, and it's always good to talk to you. And, you know, I'm a North Sider. I wasn't born here, but I've been here for probably as long as you've been alive. And so you're one of the reasons I'm proud to be a North Sider. Your story and your success is an inspiration for everybody in this neighborhood. So thank you so much. Now, let me introduce your colleague and another Twin Cityan, Jason Peterson, from the other side of the town, from St. Paul. Jason Peterson was born and raised in, and he lives still in St. Paul. He's been with Neighborhood Works for 10 years, and he's seen the organization grow from being mostly focused on a few neighborhoods in St. Paul to now serving the whole metro area. For the past 20 years, his work has revolved around making sure people have a place to live. And for him, safe and affordable, safe and stable housing are cornerstones from which everything else grows. Guys, thank you both for being here. Kim, let me just start with you and talk about Neighborhood LIFT. Let's remind people what the Neighborhood LIFT vision and proposition is.
Well, first of all,
and you have to lean into your microphone, give me a strong voice there. Okay, great. You know, somehow we're having connectivity challenges because I'm not hearing you. Jason, let me try your microphone. How do you sound?
Let's try that.
So Jason's perfect. Kim, let's try yours again.
is that better?
There we go. Okay.
All right, wonderful.
Okay.
Bring it right to me.
Okay. And you're in and out. So I'm gonna swing to Jason, and you have to work on your microphone. Jason, you get the spotlight, buddy. Talk about the Neighborhood Works program.
Sure, yeah. So Neighborhood Works Home Partners, we're a community-based nonprofit. We have an office in St. Paul in the Frogtown neighborhood, and then we also share an office space with the City Lakes Community Land Trust off Glenwood and Penn in North Minneapolis. And we help folks buy, fix, and keep their homes. And so we do that through three major pieces of our work. One is through home buyer counseling and education. So we help folks become mortgage ready. We help improve credit. We help with savings. We help with debt. And we help folks really ensure whether or not the home buying process, where they're at in the home buying process, and ensure they're ready for that. And we do that through one-on-one work, and we also do group education classes. And really being a prepared, educated homeowner is important not only in the home buying process, but also for successful home ownership long-term. And then we are also a lender. And so through the Neighborhood LIFT program, we actually provide the down payment loans. So hopefully Kim joins us soon. I'll let her talk more about that program. But we have a number of down payment programs, both in the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul and the surrounding communities. Two of the major barriers for folks to buy a home are the cash, that down payment cash, that upfront dollars, and just the knowledge and the understanding that they can do this. There's a lot of myths out there about what it takes to buy a home. You know, some people still think you need 20% down. Some people think you need X credit score. And so there's a lot of myths, and that education piece is really important. So that's a big piece to what we do. And then the third line of work that we do is we actually develop properties. So we buy dilapidated homes, fix them up and sell them, and build new properties on vacant lots as well.
Let me go to Homeownership 101 and ask you like the real fundamental question, Jason, why is homeownership important? What does it really mean? I mean, one could say, oh, a roof is a roof, a house is a house. Oh, why is home ownership so important to the family, to the community, to the country? What makes the difference?
Well, so home ownership in our country, it's still the single biggest way to build wealth. And so it's still the single biggest way to break generational poverty and to build wealth for a family. The average homeowner in the United States of America has 44 times the net worth of an average renter. And that is still the single biggest factor. There are also a number of really important.
Put that number in perspective. That sounds phenomenal. So yes. 44 times, we're talking about if somebody's net worth is...
it's about $5,000 versus about $220,000.
Wow.
Yes.
Big difference.
Big difference. And, you know, again, so home ownership is not right for everybody. And that's what we talk through with folks. But for folks, it is. You know, you can pay your own rent via mortgage, or you can pay somebody else's rent. And so that's a really important piece. And then there's also a lot of information about homeowners are generally more involved in, civics, more involved in schools. And so there's a lot of other important factors to it. And so home ownership, for those who it's right for, can really play a key role in being that foundation for success.
Great. Kim, you're back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfectly. Perfectly.
I'm with the iPhone, so anyway, but Jason, you're doing a great job. And really, you know, Al, again, thank you for having us. Jason and I felt it was really important to get the word out to the community. Mm-hmm. The Neighborhood Lift Program's down payment assistance program has been, you know, this is our third time coming to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. We launched it in January of this year. Wells Fargo Foundation put in $7 million, right? For the down payment assistance. So customers can receive $15,000 in down payment assistance. That's really, if you live in the property, it's yours free and clear. Mm-hmm. You know, you would start it out by talking about wealth creation. That's wealth creation, right? It's that $15,000. If you stay in the property for at least 5 years, that $15,000 is yours free and clear. That's really how you build wealth. And we really feel strongly, Jason and I, that really building wealth, especially in the Black communities or anywhere, it's through home ownership, and it can be achievable. And really, I recommend this program, even if you just thought about buying a home, or if you dreamt about buying a home. Maybe your credit is damaged. Maybe you have no credit. There's a way to overcome those things, right? And, you know, through the Home Partners, they can help you. There's other counseling agencies that can help you. Jason can provide all that information to you. So really, it's about making that first step, right? You know, it's important that we take back our communities, right? Mm-hmm. We take back our Black communities. You know, I think about, I grew up and was born and raised in North Minneapolis. And, you know, that used to be a community they took pride in home ownership, right? There weren't those killings and things that you hear about today going on years ago. It would never happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so now, and the thing is that after the foreclosure crisis and all that, it became renters. It became a rental community, right? Slum landlords and all that. But here's an opportunity for us as Black folks to take back our communities, take back home ownership. I'm talking Minneapolis, and also St. Paul has been a victim of the same things, you know, the Twin Cities that we've been having with all these different, you know, these bullets and crimes going on. It's important that we take back our communities, and we can do it through home ownership, pride in home ownership, and the Neighborhood Lift program gives you an opportunity to build wealth. And to start instilling pride in the community.
What a powerful message. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. My guest on the program, Kimberly Smith and Jason Peterson. Kimberly Smith Moore, properly, and Jason Peterson. Kimberly is the senior vice president at Wells Fargo. She runs the LIFT programs on a national basis and is a North Side resident. So she's speaking with passion and knowledge about what she and I think Jason all agree is a priority for our communities and for our families. And Jason is the leader over at the Neighbor Works Home Partners. So together, they're creating this marvelous opportunity for people to get into the wealth creation mode by being homeowners. Is your program, Kimberly Smith Moore, targeting first-time home buyers, or who are the people that are likely beneficiaries of this invitation to get support in becoming a homeowner?
Yeah, first I'll mention that it's for the city limits of Minneapolis and also for St. Paul. You can be a first-time home buyer, but you don't have to be a first-time buyer. But it really, our focus really is on the, Black community, the BIPOC community, right? The thing is, you could be a first-time home buyer, but you can also have had challenges with home ownership. Say your home foreclosed years ago and you want to be a homeowner again. This program is for you. It's for you to help you to achieve that home ownership dream.
And Jason, are our people hearing the message? What are the challenges in getting this idea across? I think you mentioned early on that some people just don't have the information, or they may hear it, but it's a passive type thing where they don't really internalize it and decide it's something that they can and should act on, that this opportunity really is theirs. They think it's for somebody else. Talk about what the barriers are to getting people connected and on board.
Yeah, I mean, so Al, you raised two of the biggest challenges right there, and I think that's Kim Smith Moore mentioned it earlier. It's you might not know that you're ready or feel that you're ready, but take the first step and give us a call, and you can find that out. Other barriers that we're seeing right now, it is a tight housing market. Homes are selling fast. There's low inventory. One of the great things about this current neighborhood LIFT program is we can actually do pre-approvals. And so if somebody comes to us, we can actually issue them a pre-approval. So when they shop for a home, they have a pre-approval that will make their offer more competitive. The other thing that we are seeing is just folks not being educated about their options. And so, they may or may not know that they're mortgage ready, but there are a number of lenders out there. There are a number of programs out there. For example, in the city of Minneapolis, we actually have an additional down payment assistance program. So we could provide an additional $10,000. And in certain neighborhoods, we could provide an additional $30,000. Oh. And so it's just the education, the understanding about all the programs. And it's complicated. It's complex. When I bought my first home, it was before I worked at this organization. I did not take advantage of an organization like this, and I missed out. And it's a very complicated process, and you shouldn't be concerned to ask for help and ask questions. And our organization and many others like us are HUD-approved counseling agencies, so it's no charge. You give us a call, it's confidential, it's free, and we can help you out and get you ready and point you on the right direction. And for some folks, home ownership's not right. That's fine too. We don't operate on commission. Whatever works. But it's that education, that upfront knowledge is just the important piece I'd really strive for. And there are many opportunities, including the neighborhood LIFT, which is great right now. But folks should reach out and give us or other counseling agencies a call to find that out.
I'm a veteran, for instance. Are there programs that support people like me who are veterans, young veterans coming out? Because I think that when I bought my first home, I might have used the GI Bill. I think I did. And so I'm wondering if people are still using resources like that. Do you tie them to other possible assets that they can help make their transition into equity situations?
Yes, exactly. So that's the perfect example. So the VA is still a great program out there, and there's a number of other great programs out there, and there's just so many, and there's a number of niche ones. And so again, contacting somebody at our organization, we have 3 fully trained full-time housing counselors, and there's a whole network here in the state and across the cities that do this, and they can point you in the right directions for all those great programs.
about another barrier, and I know Jason had mentioned, credit score and things like that. But what we found another barrier, especially in the Black community, is access, right? Because a lot of what we're doing is based on technology, right? We're in a technology-driven world, right? And there may be some folks on the phone that want to take advantage of it and say, well, I don't have a computer, I don't have internet access, right? And so I definitely, Jason is going to share their phone number at Home Partners, because really it's driven. You have to request the funds. You need to have access to a computer, right? And so you can access a computer at the local library. You can access it even if you wanted to go. Jason and his team would help you out there. So, we found that that's in Minneapolis, that's a barrier. And we want to definitely be able to help people address that and overcome that barrier. Don't let that stop you from taking the first step. There's things in place that can help you take the first step, and maybe you're not going to be able to purchase in 6 months. And maybe you're going to be able to purchase in a year, but you got to start somewhere, right? And now's the time.
Well, that leads me to the question, this whole concept, it's popular now, of home buyer education. And I'd like for you guys to unpack what that means. I know you've mentioned several elements of it already, but as a concept, what are we talking about? Are people going to be invited to sit in the classroom for 10 weeks or 10 months? Is it like getting an Associate of Arts degree? Is it going to night school at the Votech downtown? What is home buyer education? And let's first of all demystify that so we know that people can get the information they need all kinds of ways, all kinds of places, and it's not a painful experience. It's really a wonderful, illuminating experience. You just got to show up. But let's unpack that term. Kim first, then Jason.
So, I think Jason can talk more technically about home buyer education, but I'm going to talk about it on a high level. Home buyer education is very important. It'll set you up for success when you're purchasing a home. Home ownership is different than renting, right? When you rent something and something goes wrong, you can pick up the phone and call that landlord and say, hey, landlord, I need your help, right? But when you own a home, it's different. You don't have that landlord to call. Really, the buck stops with you. And so really, home buyer education, one of the tools that they provide you is tools and resources if you come across these different things, tools and resources to save money for different things that may happen, that may come up with home ownership. But so Jason, I want you to take it over from there. Make sure you give your phone number, Jason, too, before we end.
Certainly. Yeah. So, Al, you bring up a great point. Home buyer education, there's this broader bucket and there's a number of different opportunities in between there. And it's not something people should be scared of. It's something folks should embrace. So really the goal of home buyer education is to educate folks on the home buying process. And so it's what to expect, who does what. And so you understand and you come with your eyes wide open. There's a great organization here in Minnesota called the Minnesota Home Ownership Center. They work with a number of organizations across the state that provide this service. You can go to their website and they have some great information about the opportunities out there. Really what you're looking at is a couple of options. There is the 8-hour home buyer education workshop. We do a number of those in person, as do a number of our partners. With COVID, we have switched to those virtually and we do those via Zoom. There are a couple of network partners now that are also doing those in person. And as this starts to become safer, we'll do more of that. That's an 8-hour class that's really structured and it walks through each part of the process. Some organizations do them on a Saturday, some of them doing weekday evenings. And if you go to the Home Ownership Center website, you can find all the different options out there. And there's also an online option for home buyer education called Framework. And you can do that at your own pace, at your house, on your computer, on your iPhone. And so those are kind of the major areas that you can look at as far as what a group setting would be. And then there's also one-on-one. And so that's when you're working directly with somebody to talk through their specific situation. So us and other organizations do that as well. I would just say quickly, it's really important just to get started, give it a try, give us a call. We'll find out what works best for you over the phone, in person. Just give us a call and we'll help you figure it out.
Jason, give the numbers again and email addresses.
Certainly. So our phone number is 292-8710. And our website is www.nwhomepartners.org. And again, the phone number 651-292-8710.
Kim, thank you so much. Kimberly Smith-Moore, Jason Peterson. Kimberly is with Wells Fargo. Kimberly, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I want you to come back again and again and again. The issue of home ownership and wealth building is that critical for our people, our community. And Jason, kudos to you for working with Kimberly and others to create opportunity for wealth creation and stability in our communities. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you, Al.
Take care, Al.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll continue the program with my next guest. And I'm smiling if you see me on radio, because I'm looking at Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Lieutenant Governor, so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Always kudos to you for your pace-setting, groundbreaking, and visionary work as a partner with the governor and providing leadership and direction for the citizens of Minnesota and for our nation. First of all, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Al. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate those words. It's been quite a journey that we've all been on together. So I appreciate your kindness.
You know, I've been in some panels lately with a group that I'm associated with, the African American Child Wellness Institute, and we've come up with healing circles. And the learning that I'm taking from it is that there are protocols for engaging each other with respect and that elevate this notion of dignity and purpose and truth-telling. And one of the things that our processes start with is that we acknowledge the ancestors and thank them. We acknowledge all the elements, that create the environment that we're in and our responsibility to creation. But we also acknowledge the people who were here before us in this land. And so it's a new experience, and you can help guide me through this. What does it mean for Al McFarlane to say, I acknowledge and respect the indigenous people, the people who were here before my people arrived and before the Europeans arrived? What does that do? And what does it mean? And how can that help me understand the sacredness of time and place?
Oh, Al, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. I think we are in a moment where the acknowledgement of land and whose land we're on is becoming ever more present part of our conversations. And in the case of Minnesota Makoche, we are on what is traditionally Dakota land and Anishinaabe land as you go further north in our state. And I think what it does, especially as an Indigenous woman talking to a Black man, is an acknowledgement of our humanity, and that there were people here prior to 163 years ago when Minnesota became a state. And it is critical to tell the truth and to tell the story of who we are and where we come from. And I think that it changes conversations, and it changes the way that we see each other and the ancestors who stand behind and surround you, and the ancestors that stand behind and surround me, the sacrifices they made, and frankly, the reason why we exist in the way that we do today.
Mm-hmm. And so today, the nation and the world reflect on George Floyd, and a lot of great conversation, a great introspection. And Minnesota finds itself, I believe, as ground zero for the great reckoning out of this tragic, horrific event that was presented to the world via technology. We can no longer claim ignorance and question, did it really happen or did they mean it? even though I say that, I'm still thinking about the January 6th incident in DC, where Republicans are saying it didn't happen. So how do we deal with that? Where are we from your point of view? And what are your thoughts as you reflect on today, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan?
Sure. So it is a bright, sunny, beautiful day here in Minnesota. And in some ways, that feels hopeful, but in some ways it feels ominous as well, because a year ago today, it felt very much the same. And so I think there are things that we can look to in some policy changes that matter around police reform and accountability. But I think the real issue is that in order to move forward, we need to change hearts. And Al, you and I both know that we've been having these conversations about the inequities and the disparities in our state for quite some time. And you're right, people now can't look away. And my fear is that we try to Minnesota nice our way through this moment. And we are required to do so much more than that, and to sit in the discomfort and ask for accountability in a way that we haven't before, that requires, quite frankly, white people to do a lot more work. So the conviction of Derek Chauvin was important. And to be very candid, I didn't have hope that that's the outcome that we would receive. But some, and I would say some in the Republican Senate, have said that that conviction demonstrates that somehow the system is working, the justice system is working. And if we think one conviction is somehow justice, then we are certainly headed in the wrong direction. So I think it is a foundation on which we can build, and we are called to do so. And knowing that as an Indigenous woman, when the Black community is safe, I'm safe, and that our futures are connected and deeply woven together, and that we're relatives and need to fight for each other.
And so, Peggy Flanagan, let me ask your thoughts on what I wrestle with all the time. I wrestle as a Black man, as a dad, as a son, a resident in North Minneapolis, businessman, with the idea that I know that as human beings, we need order, we need predictability, we want safety, right? And I actually applaud our law enforcement concept and people who work there generally. I believe that these are generally men and women who are just like me, who want to get up, go to work, and then get home to their loved ones at night, right? And they start their day off with an intent of doing good and being good. And they end their day probably with a prayer saying, thank you for letting this day go through. But that doesn't mean there aren't problems, right? And that's what the George Floyd incident represents, is the existence, the exaggeration that can come out of our law enforcement system. So here's the thing. So on the one hand, I want effective, principled, moral law enforcement, but I cannot abide the abuse that our systems and structures allow errant individuals to do. That's one piece. The second piece, at the same time, Peggy, I'm concerned about this rapid uptick in violence within my community. And so how do you see us negotiating both the internal challenges we have, our children, shooting our children, us, and us walking in fear of the people we pay to keep peace, serving as oppressors, colonizers, rather than partners in a community vision? Long question, a lot of ideas. What do you think?
So I think getting to the root, Al, of what you just talked about, of the piece of oppressors and colonizers and these structures that were set up, oftentimes without your input or without my input is part of this issue. And I think that we can be pro justice, and that is the true justice for everyone. Pro accountability, pro professionalism, to what you just spoke to with these individuals who are in law enforcement, who get up every day and do this work. But also we need that piece of transparency throughout this. Who decides? And talking about what it truly means to be safe, and how we respond to people who are in crisis. We have to reimagine what public safety looks like overall, with the input of community. But what I would also say is that, Anaya and LaDavion and Trinity are kids who are eating a Happy Meal in the backseat of the car, which I can't tell you how many times Siobhan, right, has been in the backseat in the car eating a Happy Meal and jumping on a trampoline and just simply being kids, that all of us should be shaken to our core, that can happen to our children. So those solutions, and that we've got community members and faith leaders who are taking to the streets to ensure that folks are protected, and wanting our kiddos to know that this summer that they can play outside without fear. That should be something that, regardless of where we're coming from, that we can all get together and try to break through some of these tensions that we have with one another to try to get to that. What you're asking for, Al, is not radical. It is simply what should be our expectation for our children and our families and our neighborhoods. And I think the thing that's been the hardest part of this last year is asking people to simply see the humanity of Black and Brown Minnesotans, and not having to re-traumatize ourselves by talking about that trauma, by talking about the violence, in order for people to see us as human. That's something that I'm really struggling with, and I think that I'm holding, especially on this day, that you shouldn't have to beg policymakers or folks who are deciding where to invest and the value of individuals or communities to simply see your dignity and your humanity. And we've got a lot of work to do.
Did you know Gary Sudduth? I don't know if you were around back then when he was the executive director of the Minneapolis Urban League 15, 20 years ago.
I certainly know the name.
You might have been in high school.
Yeah.
You might have been in high school.
That's sweet. I wasn't, but okay.
But famously, Gary Sudduth said, and talking about the things we're talking about, follow the money, right? And he challenged everybody to not simply, say niceties, platitudes around what we should be and could be doing. He said there's an evidentiary trail. And the evidentiary trail is how our communities, our businesses, our governments allocate and move resources, follow the money. And so I bring that up, Lieutenant Governor, because I believe that neighborhoods like the one that I live in North Minneapolis, like South Minneapolis and Summit University, other neighborhoods like that, even to some degree, places like Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park that are becoming majority, quote unquote, minority, meaning lots of people of color, are still woefully under-resourced. And when innovators and I won't call them venture capitalists, but venture people, social capitalists or social venturers come through with solutions and ideas, as often as not, they are ignored or studied only to have somebody else say, we can do that better than you can. We are experts on Negroes, and we know more about your Negro life than you do. And so that leads to the other Al McFarlane statement, and that is, you know, we get the misery, they get the money, and they make money on our misery. Follow the money.
Mhm.
I believe that where we are right now, Lieutenant Governor, is that we have to, as you said, speak the truth. Speak a truth with a conviction and a power and a clarity that justifies our demand and our expectation for resources at our direction and through our agency that allow us to be on the solution side of the equation, not just the problems. What do you think?
So I couldn't have said it better myself. I think there, you know, we oftentimes, and if it's within state government or nonprofits or in philanthropy, we hire people who are quote unquote experts, who come and tell our communities how we should be living our lives and going about the way that we do our work in the community. I believe that we have experts in our own community who can best, you know, advise how to do this work, how and where to invest. I think about like juxta, right? Like juxtaposition, right?
Mhm.
We were just there yesterday.
Yep.
One of the things that we were able to do in this past legislative session was to have our equity and bond dollars, setting aside money specifically to go to organizations led by and for people of color, should just be how this works. There shouldn't be a secret handshake behind closed doors. We should just trust community to do what's best. And that is, you know, in the rebuilding of the businesses that have been lost, I trust the community can figure out how to spend that money if we give it to them. And there's this narrative that's set up that somehow Minneapolis, St. Paul, North Side, South Side, you know, University and Summit, as you mentioned, that somehow they are disconnected from the rest of Minnesota. So, you know, that couldn't be further from the truth. And I know I often hear Representative Moran talk about this. I want success for young people in greater Minnesota.
Mhm.
And I want folks in greater Minnesota to want success for my children and grandchildren too. And we have to reject this narrative that it's us against them. And we've tried to identify through our budget what we have heard directly from community and fund that. Now we need our friends on the other side of the aisle to hear that too. But that's exactly right. Follow the money, and we should be able to follow the money directly into our own people.
We're down to the last 3 minutes, Lieutenant Governor, but I want to give you a chance to sort of lay out other things that you want to tell our audiences about, things that are important to watch out for, look out for, to support, or even to challenge. Anything that you want to leave in the way of instruction and direction for the community?
Well, I would just say this, that, you know, Al, I'm grateful to be in this space with you today. And I know that today feels heavy for so many of us. And wanting to just remind folks to take care of yourself and take care of your spirit as we're navigating through this time. The last 15 months too with COVID that has disproportionately hit both of our communities and communities of color in the state. I am hopeful that we are getting more of our community members vaccinated, and you know that will be how we continue to get out of this. But we are in this this time where the legislative session officially ended, right? But we were able to agree on some final numbers for the budget. But now it's go time. This is when our conference committees and our legislative members are talking about how they're going to spend those dollars and what kind of policies will come out of them. And I think, you know, for me, I think that we've got quite a bit to do around police reform and accountability. And that justice was not, it's not one and done with the conviction of Derek Chauvin, that there's more to do. Last legislative session, we laid the groundwork for a lot of this, but there's more. And the People of Color and Indigenous Caucus, the Public Safety and Judiciary bill that they put together is strong, that takes action on no-knock warrants and prohibiting traffic enforcement stops in certain circumstances for minor violations, such as an air freshener that is hanging from a rear view window. Wanting to make sure that there is reform on the post board who regulates our law enforcement officers here in the state of Minnesota, working towards ending police-only calls when there's someone experiencing a mental health crisis, to truly meet that moment where we find ourselves, and then investing in community healing and direct support for families who have been impacted by police violence. And so those are some of the things that are on the table and being negotiated. And I would just ask, I think my call for the moment is to call your elected officials, to email your elected officials, to ask them to take action in this moment. And of course, beyond these issues of police reform and accountability, making the investments in the community directly, where our own folks know how to spend these dollars and to meet the needs of the people that we represent and the people that we serve every day. And to figure out what your role is in this moment. I will just end on this. I lost my dad about 1.5 years ago, and he would always say, "My girl, I want to burn down the system, and you want to change it from the inside out. We need both." And so figure out your role in this moment, what you lose track of time doing, and then serve your community in that way, because we need you.
Last question. Our state is getting about 1.7 billion, I think, from the feds, and about, I think it's an additional, or maybe within that, is the $500 million that that you and the governor have to work with outside of the allocation. Which is true? Is it 1.7 plus 500 million, or is the 500 million part of the 1.7 billion?
Well, there's the 2.4 billion that the legislature has that they can spend, and they can spend on a lot of the things that we just outlined. And then there's 500 million that was set aside so that we can continue to respond to the COVID-19 crisis, making sure that we're continuing to vaccinate folks, but also knowing that when we put together our budget, we wanted to make sure that the people who were most impacted by COVID-19 had the investments and the resources. And so looking at working families, education, the 75 million that was separate that we just invested in summer programming, both for school districts, but then for youth serving organizations, and making sure that we're supporting small businesses as well. So, the 500 million is an important part of our recovery, and the legislature has a responsibility. I was a Senator champion just yesterday, and we were talking about needing to push Senate Republicans to make sure that this isn't just for tax breaks for people who did really well through COVID, but this is for making sure that the people who have lost their jobs, who are barely making it, who are worried about how they're going to pay utilities, that they have those dollars, and we are going to keep pushing. But we need folks, we need your listeners to help us push that too.
Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, thank you so very much. So good to see you. Always good to see you and to be with you here. And obviously, you're welcome here anytime. We just appreciate your willingness to share. I know you're out in the community all the time. People know you and you engage, and that's a wonderful thing. You and the governor are showing up everywhere all the time. That's a good thing. Let me say before we close that I want to compliment you and the governor and the executive team on the way I believe you've led the nation in generating an expansive and effective response to COVID-19. Though we haven't hit all of our targets, and though we've had problems in attaining our intent to ensure that we didn't leave any nook or cranny, untouched by our effort to provide both mitigation and healing and vaccination, we've done a stellar job. That's what I believe. There's more to do, but I want to thank you and acknowledge what you have done and compliment you on that, and your colleagues at the legislature as well.
Thank you, Alan. You've been a really important partner in making sure that our communities have the information that they need and can get it from a trusted source. So I can't wait till we can be in the same room again.
There we go.
This conversation and just really look forward to that. So thanks so much and take good care.
And best regards to your family. Stay safe and be well. Thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Thanks again to Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Thanks to our previous guests. We had Kim Smith Moore and I call him Brother Jason Peterson of Neighbor Works Home Partners. I apologize that we did have lined up at the very beginning of the show, and we thank her for her just intent, Senator Tina Smith, and we weren't able to make that happen, not on her part, but on our part. So apologies to you, but thanks to you as well for being a part of this show, part of this work that we do. I'm going to end with music we've used to open and close the show from time to time. It's music by Ryan, and it's music that speaks to today. Kelvin, if you're ready, go ahead and cue it up, and we'll close with that, and we'll see you again this time next week. I'm your host, Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane.
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with your bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe it. Roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough. It's gonna be tough. We all agree. We've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you break. We've had enough of all the money you make. We've had enough. No more life at stake. We've had enough. This is a proclamation. It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait. Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you were breaking. We've had enough of all the money you were making. We've had enough. No more life gets taken. We've had enough. This is a proclamation. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. You better believe. Just roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough. It's gonna be tough. We all agree. We've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough. All the money you're making. We've had enough. No more life gets taken. We've had enough. This is the proclamation. We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. What? We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We had enough.
Void?
John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Bland,